My sister begged me to carry her baby. When I refused, her husband harassed me non-stop until I was forced to call the cops. I, a 26-year-old female, need to get this off my chest because I don't know what to do anymore. My older sister, Rachel 30, has been married to her husband Ethan for 5 years. I've been with my partner, Jackson, for approximately 3 years. Rachel and I were always close growing up. Our mother left when I was 4 and Rachel was 8. Charles raised us alone while working 2 jobs. Lauren helped raise me in a variety of ways. She would make sure I finished my schoolwork, packed my lunch, and braided my hair before school. We shared a room till high school. She was more than a sister to me. We went separate roads, however. Lauren met Ethan in college, and they married shortly after graduation. She never completed her degree. She worked as a receptionist for around 6 months before Ethan persuaded her to resign. He's a well-paid engineer, and she's been living at home ever since. They purchased a home in the suburbs. She spends her time beautifying it, attending yoga lessons, and visiting friends for lunch. That type of existence. I headed in a different path. I completed college and got a job in marketing. I rent an apartment in the city with a roommate. I travel whenever I can. I enjoy my independence. Jackson and I have spoken about moving in together, but we are taking things slowly. Lauren has always desired babies. When we were younger, Mother had a complete strategy. She would show me journals in which she had penned baby names. She had magazine cutouts of nursery decor tacked to the wall. She mentioned having at least 3 children, perhaps 4. It was always her dream. I've never felt that way. Kids never appealed to me. I prefer my nephew than my cousin, but I'm content to give him back at the end of the day. The prospect of becoming pregnant, giving birth, and raising a child does not appeal to me. I have known this about myself for a long time. Lauren and Ethan began trying for a baby almost 4 years ago. Lauren's statements hinted to the difficulty of the situation. When she saw a pregnant lady, she would stop talking. She stopped attending baby showers. I did not press her to talk about it. She eventually informed me last year that they were going through treatments. They attempted IVF twice. Both attempts failed. They had spent more than $45,000. Insurance didn't cover the majority of it. Ethan's parents assisted with some of the costs. The whole situation was taking its toll on them. Rachel stopped by my flat on a Tuesday evening around 7 weeks ago. Jackson was working late. We ordered Chinese cuisine and watched a cookery program. She appeared worried the entire time. She continued plucking at her noodles. Finally, she turned down the TV sound and explained that she needed to ask me something urgent. She asked whether I would consider becoming their surrogate. I said nothing at first. I simply gazed at her. She continued to speak, stating that the doctor had told her that her uterus had a problem, such as scarring. She could lay eggs but not carry a pregnancy. They had already looked into surrogacy companies, but the costs were exorbitant, exceeding $95,000. They couldn't afford IVF after spending so much money on it. She then added that because we are sisters, it would be ideal. The baby would continue to be her and Ethan's biological child. They only need me to carry it. 9 months is all. I told her no. I tried to be gentle with it. I confessed that I had never wanted to get pregnant. The pregnancy itself worries me. That 9 months is more than just 9 months. It's gaining weight, struggling with morning sickness, being unable to function effectively, and finally labor and delivery. I told her that I loved her, but I couldn't do this. She asked why not. I informed her that I had always been open about my desire to avoid having children or becoming pregnant. She stated that this was different. I would not be keeping the baby. I'd just be assisting her. I advised they save for a professional surrogate or consider adoption. She was unhappy about it. She stated that she didn't want to adopt. She wanted to have a biological child. She wanted Ethan to see his child and not raise someone else's child. Then she began weeping. She stated this after all she'd been through, including needles, operations, and disappointments. She assumed I, of all people, would understand. She said that family helps family. She reminded me of how many times she had assisted me. When I needed money for college textbooks, when I had my appendix removed and she stayed at the hospital, and when my car broke down and she drove an hour to pick me up, she accused me of being selfish. That 9 months of my existence was little compared to her entire goal of becoming a mother. I could simply take some time off from work. That Jackson would comprehend that it was only carrying a kid, not parenting it. I remained strong and answered no again. She departed without eating her meal. She didn't talk to me for 2 weeks thereafter. There are no texts, phone calls, or anything. Finally, she texted me, stating she was disappointed with me but still loved me. I replied back saying I loved her too. Then, 4 weeks after that chat, She began giving me images from our childhood, screenshots of text conversations in which I told her I loved her, and photos of us at family occasions. Each one had a letter pleading with me to reconsider, questioning how I could forsake her when she needed me the most. Jackson instructed me to block her, but I couldn't do so. She's my sister. I contacted Charles to ask whether he knew what was going on. He groaned and explained that Lauren had contacted him, weeping over it. He said he remained out of it because it was not his position to tell me what to do with my body, but I could sense he wanted me to help her. The texts kept arriving. Lauren gave me photographs of failed pregnancy tests. She provided me screenshots of her interactions with Ethan, where he mentioned giving up on having children. She sent me a video of herself weeping, stating she didn't understand why I hated her so much. I don't detest her. I just cannot do what she is asking. Last week she returned to my flat. Jackson answered the door. She rushed past him to find me in the bedroom. She had a crazy expression in her eyes. She inquired as to whether I had given it any further thought. I stated that my response was still no. That's when she completely lost it. She began shrieking that I was damaging her marriage, that Ethan was moving away from her due to the baby predicament. His relatives continued making comments about how broken she was, that this was all my responsibility since I could have fixed it, but I chose not to. She took a framed photo of us from my dresser and threw it against the wall. The glass cracked. Jackson ran in and told her she had to go. She went on him, saying he had no right to keep us apart because we were sisters. Jackson literally stood between us and urged her to leave. She eventually departed, but not before claiming she would never forgive me for this. That was 6 days ago. Since then, I've received about 35 text messages from her. Charles called and stated Lauren had informed him I had attacked her in my flat, that Jackson had threatened her. None of this is true, but Charles is now unhappy with me for allegedly provoking drama. Ethan emailed me yesterday. It was lengthy. He mentioned how difficult this has been for Lauren, how she sobs every night, how she's on medicine for depression, and how their marriage is disintegrating. He stated, "I'm the only one who can save their family." He also said, "If I truly loved my sister, I'd do this one thing for her." I gave him the email. He said Ethan was manipulating me, that this whole situation was insane, and that no one could compel me to become pregnant. But I keep thinking of Lauren. About how Grandma raised me after Mom departed. About how she has always been present. About how this is her sole dream in life, and I can make it a reality. Jackson says if I even contemplate it, he isn't sure he can stay with me. He claims that witnessing them put pressure on me like this makes him sick. He says it's my decision, but he can't see me going through something I don't want just because they're guilting me into it. I haven't slept well in days. My phone will not quit vibrating. Lauren emailed me a snapshot this morning of her childhood notebook, where she drew sketches of her future children. I do not know what to do. Part of me wants to just agree to put an end to it all, but another part of me knows that's not right. I shouldn't have to give up my body and 9 months of my life to solve someone else's issues. Am I truly being selfish here? Should I do this simply for her? Update 1. It's been 4 weeks since my first post. I need to give you all an update since things have grown considerably worse. First and foremost, I'd want to thank everyone who left comments. Most of you said I was correct to refuse and that I was being misled. A couple of you shared your surrogacy experiences and emphasized how tough it is. One individual pointed out that I couldn't legally be a surrogate because I'd never had a kid before. I searched this up, and you were correct. In my state, surrogates must have successfully carried at least one pregnancy to term. Lauren would have understood this if she had done her homework correctly. That aroused my suspicion, so I phoned Lauren and asked her directly whether she knew about this rule. She did not respond, but Ethan phoned me back an hour later. He questioned why I was inquiring about legal requirements. I told him what I had learnt. There was a prolonged pause. Then he stated they had already devised a workaround. A workaround. I inquired what that meant. He stated that they had located a reproductive clinic 3 hours away that specializes in non-traditional surrogacy options. He indicated we wouldn't go via the usual methods. Instead, Rachel and I would travel together to the initial visit. I would pretend to be Lauren. Once pregnant, I'd see my own OBGYN, and we'd disclose that it was a surrogacy arrangement after the fact. I inquired whether that was legal. He described it as a gray area, but people do it all the time. He made it appear casual, as if it were no big thing to commit fraud and lie to medical experts. I informed him that I was not going to breach the law, that I had already said no, and that the conversation was done. He became silent. Then he uttered something that made my blood turn cold. He claimed Lauren had already informed his family that I had agreed to be their surrogate, that his parents were arranging a celebratory meal, and that they had begun informing acquaintances that they would be grandparents soon. I hung up with him. I quickly contacted Lauren. She responded this time. I questioned why she told others I was going to be their surrogate when I hadn't consented. She began weeping. She stated she had notified them ahead of time because she was confident I would come around. She said that she couldn't take anything back, now. She asked me to simply go along with it. I told her no. I stated I was done with this scenario, and that she needed to tell everyone the truth. She kept weeping, claiming she couldn't. That Ethan's family would be quite displeased. His mother had already been harsh to her about her infertility, and this would exacerbate the situation. I wondered what she meant by cruel. That's when she finally revealed the truth about Ethan's family. Last Christmas they went to Ethan's parents' place for supper. His mother had made a statement about Lauren squandering Ethan's golden years. His sister scoffed and suggested that Ethan marry someone who worked. Then Ethan's father mentioned that in their day, a woman's duty was to give her husband children, and if she couldn't do that, what was she good for? Lauren claimed she had glanced at Ethan, expecting for him to protect her. He just sat there eating his meal. Later that night in the car, she questioned why he hadn't said anything. He informed her his father had a point. He'd married her anticipating children, but she hadn't delivered. I couldn't believe what I heard. I asked her why she was still with him. She said she loved him, that he was simply impatient, and that if she could give him a kid, everything would return to normal. I informed her that this was not how healthy relationships function. She hung up on me. The next day, Ethan arrived at my workplace. Someone in the lobby asked for me, so security summoned me down. When I arrived, he was clutching flowers. He apologized for his family. He said they didn't intend it. He asked if we could have coffee and discuss. I consented since we were in public and I felt it would be safe. We visited the coffee shop across the street. He bought me a latte. He appeared calm at first. He apologized again for the pressure. He stated that he understood my fears. Then he began discussing how he and Lauren had been experiencing troubles. He leaned closer and stated that I did not realize what I was doing to Rachel. That she'd become obsessed, that she couldn't sleep or eat, that she'd begun sobbing when driving past playgrounds, and that she'd had to leave her yoga class because another lady in it was pregnant. Then he revealed the worst part. He said Lauren told him she didn't want to live if she couldn't be a mother. I inquired whether she had stated it directly. He nodded. He showed me texts from her in which she said things like, life wasn't worth living, and that she had failed at the one thing she was supposed to achieve. I felt nauseous. I inquired whether she was getting assistance. He said she refused to see anybody. She continued insisting that if I helped them, everything would be okay. I exited the coffee shop. I dialed Charles immediately. I told him what Ethan showed me. Charles became silent. Then he said that Lauren had expressed feeling down, but he hadn't realized it was that terrible. He stated he had talked to her. Rachel contacted me that night, screaming. She said I betrayed her by informing Charles that I had made matters worse. That Charles had came over and had a lengthy conversation with her and Ethan. And now Ethan was upset with her. I wanted to know what Charles had said. She claimed he told Ethan that pressuring me was inappropriate. Their marital difficulties existed before the birth, and a baby would not solve them. That Ethan needs to get Lauren proper assistance rather than blaming everything on me. Then she explained that Charles had requested Ethan to leave for a while so he could talk to Lauren alone. Lauren wouldn't tell me what they talked about, but she did say Charles disappointed her since he was supposed to be on her side. She closed the conversation by claiming she needed time apart from all of us. That was 3 weeks ago. Lauren has now moved out of her residence. She's currently residing with Ethan's parents, which I believe is the worst possible situation for her. Ethan has been contacting me every few days with updates. He claims she barely eats. She does not leave the guest room. His mother supposedly continually reminding her that if she can't give them grandkids, Ethan should look for someone who can. Yesterday, Ethan sent me another message. He stated that his mother had proposed that I give eggs, even if I am unable to bear the kid. They could hire a surrogate and utilize my eggs, ensuring that the kid has Lauren's DNA via me because we are sisters. He called it a compromise. I searched up egg donations. It is not straightforward. Hormone injections are required for many weeks. There are hazards. It is intrusive, and I do not want my genetic material used to make a kid with whom I have no intention of raising or being linked. I said no again. This morning I received a call from Lauren's number, but it was Ethan's mom. She stated that she had Lauren's phone since Lauren was too sad to speak to anyone. She said I was ruining my sister, that I was selfish and harsh. That God has given certain women the power to make life. Then if I had it but Lauren didn't, I had an obligation to share it with her. I hung up. Jackson has been amazing throughout this. He has told me several times that I do not owe anybody my body. That this is ridiculous. Yet he is also concerned. He believes Ethan is unstable. He believes the way they're all ganging up on me is abnormal. Charles phoned tonight. He stated he is worried about Lauren, but he is also concerned about me. He stated he should never have remained neutral. That he should have stopped this from the beginning. He said he was proud of me for staying firm. That really made me weep. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear it from him. However, Lauren is still at Ethan's parents' house. Ethan is still messaging me, and I keep thinking about Rachel's text to him about not wanting to live. I am not sure how this will finish. I know I can't give in, but my guilt is suffocating me. Update 2. It has been 4 weeks since my previous update. I need to tell you what occurred since things have grown far worse than before. 2 weeks ago, Ethan arrived to my flat around midnight. Jackson and I were already sleeping. The buzzer continued sounding. Jackson examined the camera and saw it was Ethan. We did not give him up. He stood outside for an hour, hitting the doorbell repeatedly. Finally, our building manager emerged and threatened to contact the police. Ethan departed. The next morning, I discovered that my automobile had 2 flat tires. There was no message, but the building's camera captured Ethan's car in the parking lot around the time it happened. Jackson asked me to make a police report. I did not. I was still hoping this might be settled without contacting police enforcement. I phoned Rachel instead. She responded, but her voice was different. Flat and soulless. I told her what Ethan did. She stated I was incorrect. Ethan would not do it. I mentioned that the camera showed his automobile. She hung up. I paid to get my tires fixed. I believed that would be the end of it. It was not. A few days later, my manager summoned me to her office. She stated that someone submitted an email to the company's general mailbox alleging I was pestering them. The email stated that I had been following them, sending threatening texts, and showing up at their residence unannounced. It included screenshots of texts that seemed to be from my phone number but that I had never sent. The screenshots were fabricated, poorly faked. My employer could tell, but she needed to record it. She asked if I knew who would do it. I informed her about the issue with Lauren and Ethan. My supervisor advised that I acquire a restraining order. I responded I will think about it. That night, someone hurled a brick through the living room window. Jackson was at work. I was home alone. A sheet of paper was wrapped around the brick and secured with a rubber band. I phoned the cops because the leaflet said, "Just say yes and this all stops." They came to take a report. They stated that without confirmation of who did it, there was nothing they could do. They advised that I install security cameras. Jackson and I went to the hardware shop the next day and purchased 2 cameras. We installed them ourselves. I eventually contacted Charles and explained everything. He was infuriated. He claimed he was going to talk to Ethan and put an end to this. I asked him not to. I was scared that would aggravate the situation, but Charles refused to listen. He drove to Lauren and Ethan's residence the following day. Lauren wasn't present. She was still living with Ethan's folks, but he was home. Charles informed me afterward what had happened. He stated he had knocked on the door and Ethan responded. Charles informed him that the harassment had to stop immediately, that he had gone too far, and that if he continued, he would destroy his marriage and life. Ethan appeared to laugh. He said Charles didn't realize the strain he was under, that his family had expectations, that Lauren was breaking down, and that it was my responsibility for refusing to assist. He said I had something Lauren needed, but was withholding it out of hatred. Charles stated that he informed Ethan that I did not owe anybody access to my body, and that the request was absurd. That Ethan should seek professional treatment for Lauren rather than blaming me. Ethan responded by slamming the door in Charles's face. The next day, Lauren called me for the first time in weeks. She inquired whether I knew what Charles had done. I said yes. She said I had wrecked everything. Ethan was furious than ever. His parents were urging him to leave her because she couldn't even persuade her own sister to help them. I questioned her why she was still supporting him and why she was remaining with people who had treated her badly. She added, "I wouldn't understand because I'd never wanted the things she wanted." Then she said something that still bothers me. She responded, "You stole your mother from me when you were born. The least you could do was help me become one." I was speechless. I was 4 years old when our mother departed. Lauren was 8. I did not make Mom go. But Rachel had evidently been harboring this animosity for years. She blamed me for Mom's abandonment of us. I questioned her whether she had truly felt this way all along. She began weeping. saying she didn't know, that everything was confusing, that all she wanted was a kid and couldn't understand why it was so difficult. I advised she speak with a professional. She stated she didn't need to speak to anyone. She wanted me to quit being selfish. We have not communicated since that call. That was 3 weeks ago, yet the harassment has not stopped. My work email was swamped with spam. Someone subscribed me to hundreds of mailing lists. My social media accounts were reported numerous times before they were suspended. Someone made bogus dating profiles using my photographs. Jackson insisted I submit a police complaint regarding everything. I did. They stated that they will investigate, but these things are difficult to trace. They inquired whether I had any proof that Ethan was behind it. I didn't have actual evidence, only strong suspicions. When I got home from work 4 days ago, I discovered that someone had been in my flat. Nothing was taken, however items were relocated. My laptop was open on a site where I hadn't left it. My dresser drawers were not completely closed. When I departed, a coffee mug from the cupboard was resting on the counter. I contacted Jackson in a panic. He returned home quickly. We reviewed the security footage from the cameras we had placed. They simply covered the entrance door and the window. We hadn't put one in yet. There was no one entering or exiting, according to the film. Jackson said I was being paranoid, that I had forgotten where I had put things, but I knew someone was in there. I could feel it. We replaced the locks that day. I couldn't sleep in my flat anymore. We packed our stuff and headed to the motel. Yesterday, Charles called. He said that Lauren had come to visit him. She had left Ethan's parents' house and was now residing with Charles. She informed him that Ethan had grown controlling, that he had been monitoring her phone, that he had told her she couldn't speak to me or Charles without his permission, and that his parents had told her she was useless. Charles stated that Lauren had asked him what she should do. He instructed her to petition for divorce. She'd stated she wasn't sure if she could, that she still loved Ethan, and that if they could only have a kid, he'd return to being the guy she married. Charles said he informed her that no kid was on the way. That Ethan needed to accept it, that their marriage had to end before anything terrible happened. Lauren reportedly wept for hours. Charles claimed she eventually fell asleep on his couch. She is still there now. I asked Charles whether he believed Ethan was the one who had been pestering me. Charles said yes. That Ethan had gotten obsessed. That he had formed the belief that I was the only thing standing between him and the life he desired. This morning, I received an SMS from an unknown number. It stated, "You can't hide forever." We both know how this ends. Just agree and everyone can move on. I presented it to Jackson. He claimed we weren't going back to the flat, that we should stay somewhere Ethan cannot locate us. We've arrived at his brother's place, which is 2 towns over. I don't know what Ethan will do next. I'm not sure if Lauren will ultimately leave him. I'm not sure how long I have to live like this. All I know is that I cannot give in. Even though I am fatigued and afraid, all I want is my life back. Update 3. It has been 7 weeks since my previous update. This is probably my final article regarding this subject because it is essentially settled, but not in the way I could have imagined. I'll start with what happened 3 weeks ago. Lauren was still staying with Charles. Ethan had been phoning her regularly, but she didn't respond. Charles persuaded her to consult with a lawyer regarding their separation. She'd scheduled an appointment. The night before her appointment, Ethan arrived at Charles's residence. It was approximately 11 p.m. He repeatedly knocked on the door until Charles opened it. Charles informed me that Ethan looked dreadful. He hadn't shaven for weeks. His clothing was wrinkled. He didn't smell like he'd showered. Ethan requested to see Lauren. Charles said no. Ethan attempted to shove past him. Charles had blocked the entryway. Lauren came to check what was going on. She stood behind Charles. Ethan began shouting at her. He said she had betrayed him by leaving. She had pledged to make a life with him, but she was giving up. That if she had just persuaded me to aid them, none of this would have occurred. That his parents were correct when they said she was useless. Lauren simply stood there. She said nothing. Ethan continued going. He said I had poisoned her mind against him. That I felt envious because she had found someone to adore her while I was alone. I was not alone. I had Jackson, but Ethan was no longer making sense. Charles instructed Ethan to go. Ethan declined. He stated he wouldn't go without Lauren. Charles phoned the cops. Ethan eventually departed before they came, but he remained in his car outside the home. Charles and Lauren stared through the window. Ethan remained there all night. His automobile was still present in the morning. Lauren attended her lawyer's appointment nevertheless. Charles drove her. Ethan followed them all the way. He waited in the parking lot while she consulted with the attorney. When they emerged, Ethan got out of his car and approached them. He implored Rachel to return home. She said no. He questioned whether she would truly throw away 7 years of marriage. She said he had already damaged their marriage. Ethan grabbed her arm. Charles moved between them. Ethan let go but then yelled about how I had wrecked his life. Lauren was all he had, and now I was taking her away from him. How he would never forgive me for this. Charles got Lauren into the vehicle. They headed to the police station to file for a restraining order. It was given briefly. Ethan wasn't supposed to get within 450 feet of Lauren or Charles's homes. That following week, Jackson and I also filed for one. Our request was also approved. Ethan broke Lauren's restraining order 3 times inside the first week. The first time he left flowers on Charles's doorstep, along with an apology message. The second time, he arrived at Lauren's yoga studio and waited outside until her class finished. The third time, he accompanied her food shopping. Lauren phoned the cops every single time they documented it. After the third transgression, Ethan was arrested. He spent 2 nights in jail until his parents got him out. While Ethan was in jail, Rachel stayed at Charles's house and began sorting through her belongings from the house she shared with him. She discovered his laptop. She subsequently informed me that she definitely shouldn't have read it, but she did. What she discovered was far worse than any of us had expected. Ethan had documented everything. He had spreadsheets that tracked my schedule. He had noticed when I left for work, when I returned home, and where I went on weekends. He had taken screenshots of all my social media postings. He had made bogus profiles to follow me online. He'd been preparing the harassment campaign for months. But the worst thing was what else Lauren discovered. Emails between Ethan and his mother. His mother had encouraged everything. She had informed him that I needed to be persuaded by all means necessary. She proposed the flat tires. She'd assisted him in creating the phony screenshots that were provided to my workplace. His mother has also communicated with surrogacy companies. She discovered one in another nation with less rules. She had planned to take Lauren there and have the surgery performed regardless of whether Lauren understood what was going on. The emails made it plain that Ethan's mother planned to take full control of the issue. Lauren reported all of this to the police. They conducted a more serious inquiry. Ethan was charged with stalking and harassment. His mother was hauled in for questioning but was not prosecuted. She stated she was only trying to help her son. Ethan accepted a plea agreement. He's on probation for 2 years. He has to remain away from me, Lauren, Charles and Jackson. He is not permitted to contact any of us, directly or indirectly. He must attend court-mandated anger management sessions. Lauren filed for a divorce. Their prenuptial agreement made things simple because they had no children and she had never worked during their marriage. She received a settlement that will provide her with financial support for the foreseeable future. She moved into her own apartment last month. She's no longer residing with Charles. She's attending online programs to get her degree. She claims she wants to be a school teacher. Rachel and I have still not fully healed our relationship. We occasionally text brief messages. She'll ask how I'm doing. I'll ask the same question, but we haven't seen each other in person since before all this happened. There is too much between us now. She apologized once via SMS. She claimed she had been so engrossed in her desire for a kid that she had lost sight of reality. That Ethan took advantage of this and exploited her. That she finally understood why I said no. That she apologized for everything. I replied back saying I accepted her apologies, but wanted time. Jackson and I moved into a different apartment. We did not renew my prior lease. There are too many negative memories there. The new location feels safer. We had a security system installed before we moved our stuff in. Charles checks in with both of us on a frequent basis. He sees Lauren once a week. He had supper with Jackson and myself every other week. He's attempting to maintain some sort of familial connection. I appreciate that about him. I still have moments when I peek over my shoulder, double-check that the doors are secured, and startle at unexpected sounds. Jackson says it's natural given what transpired. He has been patient with me. Lauren told me last week that she had started talking to someone at her school about the prospect of someday fostering children, rather than adopting them. She explained that she realized she wanted to help children in need rather than establish a perfect biological family. She suggested that this was what she was intended to do all along. I hope that is accurate. I hope she finds what she is seeking for. But I am not sure whether we will ever be as close as we were before. Too much has transpired, too much was stated. Ethan is still living at their previous place. Rachel found out through common acquaintances that he is already seeing someone new, someone younger. She worried whether he'd do the same thing to this new lady. I said, probably. The restraining orders expire after 16 months. I'm not sure what happens after that. I hope Ethan has moved on by then, and that he has found the assistance he requires, but I am prepared for the likelihood that he has not. Things are calm right now. My life is back to being my own. I go to work. I return home to Jackson. We are talking about acquiring a dog. Normal things. Lauren is creating her own life, one that isn't focused on Ethan, babies, or what she believed she should desire. And I'm fine with the notion that we may never be as close as we once were. Some things break and don't get repaired. Some relationships are unable to withstand the strain placed on them. That's just the way it is sometimes.